Well, you may be onto something, all right. Never thought a woman could do in Meston, but she's sure strong enough, and she's left-handed to boot.
What? What are you two pulling?
Oh, it's just a little educational exercise.
You set me up as a suspect in my own husband's murder. You can both suck eggs.
Hello, everybody. This is Sean.
And Steve.
And welcome to the first episode of...
I like that you took a breath between that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm a little nervous, Steve. I'm a little nervous.
Oh,
welcome
yeah, it's our first podcast.
Yeah. The first episode of the Cabot, Cove Confab. A sequel, if you will, to the Columbo Confab. Which those of you who listen to that and it's still subscribed to it for some reason, this will be in your feed. And for those of you that were expecting an episode of shit we watch on Netflix, sorry, we're not doing it anymore because nobody was listening to what we were doing. So,
sorry,
yeah.
Jim, it's dead.
Yeah, so that's it. Shit we watch on Netflix is no more. This is going to go in the shit we watch on Netflix feed. But if you want to subscribe or follow the podcast, as they say in Apple Podcasts, you want to look for the Cabot Cove Confab. And for those of you that don't know me and Steve, welcome.
Wait. What's the Cabot Cove Confab? What do we discuss in this particular outing?
Well, for those of you who don't know, we're going to talk about every episode of Murder. Well, not maybe every episode, but each episode will be dedicated to talking about a particular episode of Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, I don't think our livers could last as long as how many episodes there are of Murder, She Wrote.
There's 260-something episodes over 12 seasons. I don't know.
We'll be dead. We'll be dead, Jim, by the time that happens. Yeah.
Even if we're, I was going to think of something from the episode, but yeah. I think we'll be dead, even with full lives. I don't know. Who knows? If we did one a weekend, it would take us about 4 years. Or 5 years. So, I don't think we're going to do one a weekend. No. All right. I mean, most weekends.
Because we're going to try. We're going to try very hard.
Yeah. So, here we go. And the way we're going to do this is... we're not going to begin with episode 1 and go through, because I think it's sort of... I don't know. I don't like doing it that way. It's predictable. I like to be a little unpredictable. So what we'll do is every episode we're going to pick an episode to watch at random from each of the seasons. So we're going to do one from season 1 today, and then at the end of the episode we're going to spin the wheel and we're going to randomly choose an episode from season 2, and then the next one will be from season 3, and so on. Yeah,
and for the readers, Sean wanted us to discuss kind of our history before this, and I felt that we've had this conversation multiple times Sean and I have done plenty of podcasts prior, and I've always felt like we've always discussed kind of our history. So I'm going to make it very brief and very quick. But Sean and I have been podcasting for over 10 years. We did a Doctor Who podcast called The TARDIS Tavern. We did Columbo Confab, which wrapped up, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think that's right.
And then we decided to kind of venture out into horror and sci-fi because we like those movies. So we did a shit we watch on Netflix. We did that for over a year. And so we decided, the audience for Columbo Confab was huge. And it still continued to grow even after we were done with the show, because we did every single episode. And it kept growing and growing, even though we weren't producing any new content. And so we decided that we should do one on Murder, She Wrote. A very similar, not similar story, but similar style to Columbo. So we thought that would be fun to do.
And it's...
Because I was looking for something. I miss doing the Colombo Confab, honestly.
And yeah, and this is more like it, and it really it's an organic progression because Colombo was created by the same guys who created this one, Williamson and Link. So yeah, it just seemed to be the way to go. And also, it's fun to look at these and find the people that were in Colombo, and I've got a list already. Well, it's a list of one guy, but yeah,
okay.
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Well, and for those that are, if this is your first time hearing us, I will warn you, this is more of an adult podcast. We do drink. Things do derail towards the end. I would say, maybe sometimes they derail at the very beginning, but we do try. It is a what they call a drunken podcast, which, quite honestly, Sean, I think we may have been a part of inventing back over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So you're listening to some of the originators of that type of podcasting or YouTube video. I wouldn't say we started it, but we were one of the first to start that.
Okay. All right.
So I just give you an idea what you're getting yourself into. You've been warned.
Yeah. There's a explicit label on the podcast anyway. But Steve, before we start, why don't you tell us about what your history, if any, is with Murder, She Wrote?
0. So, kind of like with the Colombo thing, I didn't know anything about it. You talked me into it somehow. I think it was one drunken night. You forced me to watch multiple episodes until I was intrigued by it. Enjoyed it immensely over our run. Murder, She Wrote, I was familiar because it was something my grandparents would watch with Golden Girls and Wheel of Fortune. So I didn't really have much knowledge. I mean, I knew of Angela Lansbury. I was aware of her from one of my favorite films, Frank Sinatra films, The Manchurian Candidate, which, great film. I think Angela Lansbury is a great actress.
By the way, Steve, I wanted to tell you, I found out yesterday she was offered the part of Nurse Ratched, and she turned it down in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Wow.
Could you imagine? Oh, my God.
No. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's really all I'm familiar with her film history. So, to me, all this is new. I did pre-watch a few episodes. And I'm watching, by the way, my viewing is through the Peacock streaming service. Now, yours is going to be through the DVD box set.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, that's correct.
Just give you a heads up. Yeah.
My history with
what's your history? Yeah.
I watched it with my grandparents too. Surprise, surprise. My parents didn't like it. I liked it because it was. Basically, I was into Agatha Christie, and this is sort of a Miss Marple type. Well, Miss Marple was more elderly than Jessica, but because I like murder mysteries and stuff. So when it was on at my grandparents after 60 Minutes and the football, I would watch it, and sometimes I would try to figure out who the murderer was, and sometimes I was right, and sometimes
So you went from Ed Rooney to Angela Lansbury.
Yeah, I think it was, if memory serves.
Why is it? No, sorry.
Have you ever noticed that Angela
Why do
Lansbury
kids like to rock and roll?
Why is everybody on the keto diet? Why do I have huge eyebrows?
Yeah.
So
why do I have to use hedge trimmers to trim my eyebrows? I don't know.
See, if you're new to us, this is it. We go on these bunny trails and talk about whatever.
Yes.
So yeah, sometimes I was right, and I'd be like, yes, jazz hands. And sometimes I would be dead wrong, like I was for this episode that we watched for today. And we'll get there. We'll get there. So, okay. Unless you want to add something, Steve, without further ado, shall we get to our first story?
Let's do it.
Okay. Let me have a sip of this wonderful Japanese whiskey.
Oh, you're having Japanese whiskey. I'm having dandelion wine tonight. I didn't know that was a thing. I mean, I've heard of toilet wine, but
we'll get there.
I want to try dandelion wine. This episode made me want to explore new worlds and new flavors.
Kind of like that Colombo episode with the cheese.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah.
All right, so this one is called
my one month quest to find a particular cheese that Colombo liked, which no store would stock for some reason. But whatever. Yes. Continue.
This one is called Funeral at 50 Mile. This happens to be the last episode of the first season of Murder, She Wrote, and I was immediately upset because it was not set in Cabot Cove, because I thought that most of the stories in the first season were set in Cabot Cove. And I'm like,
I just want to say, so I've randomly selected a few episodes just to get a feel for the program, and I would say out of the 5, only 1 took place in Cabot Cove. Okay. So it's very, very bizarre that everybody says that all these episodes take place in that particular location, but not true. Not what I've seen so far.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think a lot of the first season is, but no, this is set in 50 Mile, Wyoming, and there's a funeral.
Back ass city in Wyoming that has a very tiny population. Like, I think everybody's probably related to one another.
Yeah, and everybody is over 60 years old, and they're all grumpy, and they're all old men, or at least they are in this episode. And then there's Mary.
And her soon-to-be husband, Art.
Yes.
Which I think it's interesting, there's a couple of scenes where Art and Mary kiss, and all the old people just look at them like, I don't know, like you would imagine vampires who would be like fresh blood. So,
yeah. So, despite the fact this wasn't in Cabot Cove, which I consciously, as I drink this whiskey, I have to make sure I don't say Cabbage Cove. This does have all the Murder, She Wrote tropes that I love, and I'll pick them out. But we've got a whole cast of characters here we get to know at the funeral immediately afterward.
The very first scene is at a person's funeral, Jack Carver. Mm-hmm. So he has passed, and who we see at the funeral. By the way, the funeral location looks very similar to where Columbo's wife was fictitiously buried in that one of those final episodes. But we have Mary, who's his daughter. We have her husband to be Art. Mm-hmm. We have Jack's younger brother, Tim. We also have the local doctor, Doc Wallace, and then a guy named Sam, who I think is kind of like the lawyer or the the legal advisor for the family. Yeah, I'm not real sure.
I don't remember what his last name is. I didn't get his last name, but he's played by an actor that you're going to see again, William Wyndham, and this was his.
Has he become a regular in this show?
Yes, in season 2, he plays Dr. Seth Haslett, who's kind of Jessica's Watson, if you will. He's Cabot Cove's doctor.
I felt like I've seen him in a lot of these videos that do kind of like what's one of those that do like the top 10 moments in this show or that show. But I seem like I've seen him in a lot of those episodes. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of confused. Like, oh, he's going to be one of the regulars, but no, he's not. So he does play a different character, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
We have Bill Carmody, I guess, who's just a business guy. I don't know. It's all these old guys. There's one actor here, Peter Moffat, Donald Moffat. He plays Tim Carver. Does he look familiar at all?
Well, those eyebrows do. I know I've seen him, though.
Okay.
I know I've seen him somewhere.
Okay.
I did not look him up on IMDb, but why is he so familiar to me? What
I would prefer not to spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking chair. He was in The Thing.
Really?
Yeah, remember? He's the guy, he's like the head guy. I mean, eventually Kurt Russell becomes the head guy because,
Right.
But yeah, he's that guy. You don't remember?
Well, I haven't seen the movie in so long. I know I'm looking forward to an upcoming release, and I'm definitely buying it. But, okay, I know I've seen him in other things, though. I just know I can't place him. Feels like he was in a Superman movie, too, with Christopher Reeves.
I don't know about that. He was in an episode of Columbo. He was in No Time to Die. He played the kidnapped bride's father. He is no longer with us. He passed away about 2 years ago. A lot of people in this are no longer with us. I wrote down their names. Bill Carmody, businessman. Doc Wallace, doctor. Tim Carver, brother. Mary, the Sam, the attorney. Mary, the daughter. Art, the son-in-law. And then I wrote down the new guy that shows up. Carl Maston. Asshole. That's what I wrote there. And this is a trope. You can see the victim coming from a mile away. The minute the guy shows up and everybody obviously doesn't like him, dead. He's going to be dead. Give him 10 minutes, 15 minutes, dead.
Right.
And it turns out that everybody has a motive to kill him, including his wife, Sally, who, I don't know if they're giving out Emmys, but maybe she... Oh, yeah, Sally. And, so take it from here, Steve.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
So, yeah, with the death of her father, Mary is set to inherit this large plot of land, the Carver Ranch. Now, there's a few kind of caveats here, because the problem is that Jack Carver, her father, did not leave a will, surprisingly. And everybody is interested in that piece of land, especially her uncle, the younger brother, Tim. Not her younger brother, but Tim, the younger brother of Jack. He wants to combine the properties again, like it was when they were children. And before they can kind of come to an agreement on price or whatever, that's when Carl and Sally kind of come in. They go, I've got the last will and testament. The property is mine. He willed it to me at his last moments of life. So,
doesn't sound fishy at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And of course, during this whole thing, after the funeral, everybody's kind of doing this wake thing after the funeral, where they're all getting together just to socialize, as one would do, and a storm's starting to come in. So there is a situation where everybody's kind of locked on the property. So there's a reason for everybody that's there in that house to be suspects.
Right.
And everybody's got a reason. So, and it's kind of funny because, with Art, the soon-to-be husband, they kind of play on the idea that he's really with Nancy because he's just hungry for that land himself. Right. So knowing that he's going to marry her, he'll inherit the land. But they don't really dive into that. They kind of hint at it at the very beginning. Then, of course, you've got the brother or uncle, Tim, who also would have a vested interest in seeing that Carl sells him the land. And it's interesting because they kind of hint at it very briefly, was that once Tim finds out that Carl has the land, he throws him an offer. But it's only said in a kind of a pass-away sentence when Sally says something like, that offer you gave us was a joke. So it was interesting. Tim is already trying to play his card in order to get the land back, even though he's doing it without his niece, her knowledge or anything like that. Very, very suspicious.
Yes. Oh, and we also have the sheriff, but don't call him sheriff, Marshall Parks.
The marshal.
Another person who, Potts, sorry. Another person who could probably have won an Emmy from his performance in this show.
I quite liked him, actually. I think you're being sarcastic. But the way he kind of does a John Wayne slash with who's that other actor? Go ahead and make my day.
Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood. Yeah, so it's like a John Wayne, Clint Eastwood kind of caricature that he's trying to do. He's a sheriff, but wants to be called Marshal. He keeps his gun holstered at his side for a quick draw, even though, he's very inexperienced. And I like the fact that when Jessica is talking to Sam, I think it was Sam, about what's his background? What is he prepared to do a murder investigation? And he's like, he's been in that role for 2 years and he hasn't seen a murder. So it's interesting because Jessica's kind of have to lead him to the clues and lead him to helping solve the case.
Yeah,
and he's the kind of guy that's, I would say, does not like. He's not a big fan of women. I mean, no. he probably likes the sexual stuff with women, but he's not convinced that women can think for themselves. And there's a couple of statements he says that really kind of would not fit well in the Me Too movement.
No.
So, yeah.
But this is what I call Murder She Wrote-ism. And sometimes I think that they're showing their cards a little bit too much. But there is this random scene where Sally challenges her husband Carl to what do you call it? Arm wrestling. I'm like, well, this is just kind of random, and you always got to look out for stuff like this because it's going to mean something later on. And I'm like, oh, this is a clue because Steve, I love clues, and I also love Clue Gallagher who plays Carl Meston in this. I'm like, okay, this is going to come up later. So it wasn't a clue, Steve. It was a red herring.
A red herring, yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, because Jessica does her, like, she, in the episodes I've seen, she's very subtle. She likes to engage people in conversation. Columbo kind of has his process, his quirks in discovering clues. But with Jessica, to me, it's a discovery of how she operates. And, of course, I enjoy that because it gives me some idea of how she's going to solve this case. And one of them is she's very good at casual conversation. And one of the things that she goes up to, she's trying to figure out why would Jack disinherit his only daughter to inherit or to give off the property to this guy, this jerk, Carl, that he's supposedly business partner with. And when she presents that, in casual conversation, Carl says something, oh yeah, I saved his life in Korea. We surfed together. And Jessica's like, whoa, yeah, really? Okay, well, my husband, my deceased husband, Frank, was their commanding officer. So you knew Frank.
Tom Fletcher.
Oh, but later she says Frank.
She does because she gives him the wrong name, so he can be like,
oh
yeah. His real name was Frank.
I see. Okay, I did not catch that.
That's how she caught him.
But interesting, yeah. So she, one, we learned a little bit about Jessica. I think it's funny that the name of her deceased husband is Frank, but that's.
I knew you were going to mention that.
That's going to go down another bunny trail where we don't need to go, but.
Columbo's dead, and this is Mrs. Columbo. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
I liked one of the things that Marshall Potts said was, "Oh, you write them mystery books." He goes, I like Mickey Splain. I don't know who the fuck that is. That'd be funny if that was like her, if that was her nemesis. But
actually, Mickey Spillane is a real guy, a real author, and he was actually in an episode of Columbo, the one where Jack Cassidy pretends to get drunk while that guy goes and that guy that was shot is Mickey Spillane, and he played a mystery author in that, or an author of some kind of type in that episode. And people, we're going to bring up Columbo a lot in this.
Wait, so that was the actor, or was that the character?
That was the actual Mickey Spillane acting as whoever that character was. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
And you can kind of tell he's not an actor in that. I mean, some of his lines are delivered kind of woodenly. So,
well, so he says something to the fact that he likes his stories better than I guess that J.B. Fletcher, which is, by the way, J.B. Fletcher. For people who are as unfamiliar of Murder, She Wrote as I am, that's the pen name Jessica uses.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. Let's get to the murder. There needs to be a murder, because this is Murder, She Wrote.
Yes! Our Murder, She podcast. Yeah. So, yeah, the storm's coming in, and they've got to batten down the hatches, I guess you would say. And I think it's really nice that Carl is like, he volunteers, I guess, after losing to Sally at arm wrestling. And it's funny, so he has to pay her $500 every time he loses an arm wrestling match.
Weird. Yeah, and he pays her $450 and then takes off. But
okay. That's still a lot of money.
Yeah, especially 1985. But we see Carl up. We find out later it's at 3:00 a.m., which it does not look like 3:00 a.m. because it would have been dark. But okay, I'll go with it. He's up.
Wait a minute, that's at 3 a.m.?
Yeah. The time of death was about 3 a.m. They figure.
I thought it was 3 p.m. Are you sure?
Maybe you're right. Maybe it was 3 p.m. I'm just assuming that party was at night. But okay. And maybe you're right.
Something we should say before we talk more about the death. Everybody in 50 Mile, Wyoming, hates Carl. They all have had bad business dealings or something or another that Carl has caused them grief, and so the town hates him.
Right.
And so, the whole town would have a reason to want to kill him, but we're concentrating more on the group of people who are at the funeral, right?
Right.
So it's saying that.
In fact, that's one person's motive is he just doesn't like Carl. And basically, there's as many motives to kill Carl in 50 Mile as there are cowboy boots. Which I notice, Jessica, whenever she visits someplace different, she always does the when in Rome thing. She went and bought herself, maybe she went to Shippler's, they have that in Wyoming, and she bought herself a pair of cowboy boots. Did you notice that?
I noticed she was wearing boots. Were they cowboy boots, though? Yeah,
they were definitely, it was a far shot. Don't quote me on that then. Never mind. So the next morning, they're all sitting down for breakfast when a farmhand finds Carl hanging out in the barn.
No, Jesus finds him.
It's not Jesus, it's Jesus. I'm sorry, everybody. Steve is from Richardson, Texas. He does not have a sense of humor. He has really bad jokes. Please don't laugh at his jokes. Please.
I think they're quite hilarious.
Okay, whatever.
I mean, he found Jesus. That's great.
Yeah. No, I think Jesus found him, or Jesus found him. But Carl's hanging out in the barn. See what I did there? Hanging out. Hanging by a rope from the rafters.
Just hanging around.
Yeah.
It's got nothing else going on.
It could have been suicide, but that's unlikely because he was hit on the back of the head on the left-hand side. And apparently Jessica says that the dead body was thrown over the rafters after he was dead because of the way that the rope... I didn't understand this, and I love
his full weight. It was his full weight. Because, I guess if you would throw somebody, or if you would hang somebody from the rafters, they would be trying to lift themselves. And so it would be the full weight. So when they threw the body over, it was the full weight of the dead weight.
But wouldn't the dead weight be there anyway after he died?
I don't know. Well, I think because of the force of throwing the body over. Instead of slowly, dangling and then giving up. I don't know.
There was also a hail bale that was moved, but I don't know anything about that. I don't know. That doesn't come into it later on.
Yeah.
So, the Doc, what's his name? Doc Wallace says that he was definitely hit in the head before he was hanged. Okay, so this is a mock hanging. He didn't really die by hanging. So, fun fact, you could actually tell if someone died by hanging or not, or if they were murdered, by whether or not there are ligature marks on the neck. So if you strangle someone, the ligature marks would be around the bottom of the neck, whereas if they've died by hanging, the ligature marks would be like from their chin up, because that's where the rope stops. Okay? So all they could do is check that. And they, discuss. They bring everybody together in the heavily decorated parlor, which houses chairs that my grandmother owned at one time. My grandparents had chairs exactly like the ones that they're sitting in the scene. And it turns out...
and let's talk about the suspects.
Yes.
So we have Tim. That was the uncle. We have Bill. I'm not sure what his relationship is. We have Sam, who we talked about being the family lawyer, and Doc Wallace. Mm-hmm. So we according to when the sheriff or the marshal asks, Tim and Bill are busy corralling the horses. Sam, he's busy pulling in the feed out of the rain so it doesn't get wet, and Doc is closing the garage building. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's
so they all. Yeah, but they all can account for each other. They all have alibis, and the only people who don't have alibis are Mary, the daughter, right? So she's sleeping away on sleeping pills. Sounds like 4 little Indians there. Sally, Sally, the crazy arm wrestling. I don't know what you want to call her. The widow,
the wife.
She's sleeping off a hangover. Jessica is sleeping off jet lag, and the marshal even says, "Well, everybody's sleeping off something." And then there's Art, and Art. All we know is that he's being considered heavily as the main suspect because, as the marshals say, he's due to elimination or something
basically
like that.
inherit after he marries Mary. And now let me ask you something. Who do you think? Were you trying to figure this out as you went along, or do you just kind of go with it and okay, I'll just see who the murderer is? Because I always try to figure.
No,
it out.
I mean, yeah, no. I try to figure it out. I honestly, I was a little bit suspicious of Art and of the uncle Tim.
Okay. I thought it was Sally. I really thought it was Sally because
I could see it being Sally too. Yeah, I mean, she was on that list. I guess we'd say those three definitely.
Yeah, but she became like prime suspect number 2 later on, and I'm like, well, now she can't have done it. That's impossible. Now Mary, I know it's not her because she's like the friend that Jessica always has. Like maybe she's a niece or nephew sometimes, but right. Jessica always has like an innocent, usually younger person that she's going to visit, and this person is never the murderer. Never the murderer. I would be shocked. Yeah, that I know of. All right. So Mary, plus Mary is not strong enough, allegedly, to lift a body like that. But Sally could beat him in an arm wrestling competition, so she's a strong lady. And she's
and the marshal didn't really believe there's no woman who could do this. That other kind of feminist, anti-feminist remark.
Yeah.
And Jessica's like, well, why don't you? If you think so, why don't you challenge Sally to an arm wrestling contest? I think you'll find that interesting. But yeah,
before that, they arrest Art. They go out and they arrest Art.
They do arrest him, yeah.
Yeah, he's the only man with a motive that doesn't have an alibi.
Well, because at the very beginning when Art meets Carl, I mean, he gets into a fist fight with him.
Mm-hmm.
Gets because he's Carl is being an ass, and so it just gets on Art's nerves and takes a swing. But
yeah. So they put Art in jail, and it's like the typical county jail, and Sam and Jessica go to visit him, and they're like, "Well, you don't have probable cause," and Mary's there, and they're kissing through the bars, and I'm like, "Oh my God, please give me a break." Why don't we just have the
spit?
Oh my goodness, the young people today. What are you going to do? Whatever.
Give them the conjugal visit. Yeah. Well, again, they're the only young people there that are willing to bonk each other, and I'm sure all the old people are like, yes, we need more children. We don't. This town's going to die.
Yeah. Sally seemed seems to me like they could pass Sally around, but I don't. All those old men.
Well,
I don't know
I mean, Art and Nancy, they could repopulate that little town if they wanted to.
I guess so. If their kids had, kids. Anyway, this is disgusting. Let's not go there. So they manage to get Art out of jail. He doesn't end up going to trial because the sheriff, or I'm sorry, the marshal is an idiot. So
he is, yeah. And one of the things that Jessica kind of convinces the marshal that, well, look, Art is right-handed. Whoever hit him over the head was left-handed. So you're looking for someone who's left-handed, which, by the way, Sally is, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a few left-handers in this episode, but Sally is definitely left-handed.
And we find out she's going to go, Jessica decides that she's going to do and pull something illegal and go visit the doc's nurse, who also happens to be the telephone operator for the town. And
she knows everybody's business.
And she just happens to mention that Carl was there earlier looking through some of the doc's files, which you don't do that.
Yeah.
And Jessica's like, you don't suppose that I could look at those? And I'm like, okay, if the nurse lets her look at those files, this is because that's doctor-patient confidentiality. That's a huge thing. You can't just let some stranger.
Yeah, there'd be some HIPAA rules being broken right there. But I don't know if... Was HIPAA around back in 85? I don't know.
No, it was not. Don't ask me when. I remember when it started because when I went to the pharmacy, they had to do all this extra stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, they do things their own way in those little towns.
Yeah,
but there's true. One of my favorite lines for this episode was delivered when Jessica, recommends that the marshal should arm wrestle Sally, and Sally beats. I just cannot imagine. I mean, yes, I'm going to bury myself here. Anyways, Sally beats the marshal, and then the marshal's like, "I guess you're right, Jessica. She does have a motive and she does have the strength." And what does Sally say? Something like, "Oh, she figures out, oh, that was a setup, that Jessica had set her up." And she goes, "Well, you can both suck some eggs." I'm like, geez, you just don't hear that anymore, do you? Go suck some eggs.
What does that mean? I mean, I know what it means, but I'm just trying to be like...
How do you suck an egg? Maybe that's the point.
Is it before the egg is cooked and you make a little hole in the shell and suck it out? Or is it is it like a hard-boiled egg? Do you cook it first? Like, is it like scrambled eggs? Oh, I made eggs over easy this morning. Using Mrs. Kringle's recipe. It turned out good. I ate all the eggs, but I cooked them for too long, and it was kind of like hard-boiled.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. I've done that where I cooked them a little too long. By the way, if you go on YouTube, there's Mrs. Kringle's easy way to make eggs over easy. And I've always had trouble making eggs over easy. It's funny because it's one of my favorite breakfasts because I have a hard time with it. Because you cook it, getting it on there. You don't want to break the yolk when cracking the egg, but when you flip them over, that's the hard part, right? Because I like my yellow runny. I like to sop it up with toast, right? Mm-hmm. So I found this recipe online, and you and I were playing a game called Dead by Daylight, and I brought it up, all the crazy shit we talk about while we play that game, and you were like, yeah, I know exactly what video because I've been doing that for quite a while. So the next morning I got up, I was so excited to get up, and I made myself the eggs, and they came out perfectly. So yeah, it's called Mrs. Kringle, is that right?
Mrs. Kringle, like Santa's wife.
Yeah, there's a 2-minute video, and if you're a fan of that type of egg, look it up. 2 minutes, yes. And it's so easy. I mean, it's almost impossible to screw it up. And I'm starting to get sick of eggs over easy because I've been making them like every other morning now. It's ridiculous. It was something that was so special because it was so hard to make. I'm the kind of the perfectionist, by the way, Sean, that if I would break the yolk in cooking, I would just throw the egg out. I'd get so mad and start over. Or I just couldn't have it.
I had... Today, I have a bathtub that has kind of a ridged bottom. It's for safety, so you don't fall down and slip and hurt yourself.
For her pleasure?
No, it's ridged, not ribbed. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry. So, YouTube is fantastic. I don't know how we existed in this world without the internet. So I looked for a video to show me how to clean this damn tub because I tried everything. You know what it is? Baking soda and vinegar. You mix the two together, it kind of foams up and makes the paste, and then you just scrub it. And you have to put a little elbow grease in there, but you'll get that dirt off the bottom of the bathtub. Not 100%, but probably about 85%. And I was
what else that's also good for?
What?
If you burn the bottom of your pot.
Really?
Yeah. Do the same thing. It'll get that burnt crap off the bottom of your whatever pot you've cooked with. Cleans it up nice and clean. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you will learn more than just about murder here in the Cabot Cove podcast. A Cabot Cove Confab podcast. That's kind of a mouthful, but yeah. Let's talk about Sally, shall we?
Just put some vinegar and baking soda in your mouth, and you'll be fine.
No, I'm going to put that on pause. I'm going to say no to that. Although I love vinegar, but whatever. So Sally has taken up residence in the Carver mansion. They're making a lot of long distance phone calls, and there's a couple scenes. Winona Ryder, she's got her hands on her hips, and she's like, "Sally, you better not stay here any longer." And
Winona Ryder,
yeah, she looks like Winona Ryder, Mary. And Sally's like, she's like Winona Judd, and she puts her hands in her hips, and she's moving her head around, and her dangly earrings are moving around. And her, yeah,
listen, girlfriend.
This is my ranch. You can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. And turns
girlfriend.
out, yeah. So when Jessica tells the marshal, you should challenge Sally to a I was going to say fisting contest to a
oh, that's something else.
Oh, whew! I'm got the vapors.
Marshall might like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? She's challenge him to a arm wrestling, and they make a point of showing this, and I'm like, it's got to be her. I don't know what it means, but it's got to be her. She takes off her bracelet because she's got all this jewelry.
Shit.
Yeah, she tans, so there's a tan mark or lack of a tan mark where her bracelet was. I'm like, I don't know what this means, but it means something. And they show us more, but we don't know what they're showing us until later on. And that's when Jessica's like, well, Sally, you weren't really Carl. By the way, to be fair, she's wrestling using her left hand, and she's left-handed. And if you are right-handed, and even if you were a big, strong man, wouldn't it be easy for her to beat you at arm wrestling? Wouldn't it?
But I think she was left-handed. I don't know. I think she was wrestling with her left hand.
She was. I'm looking at it right now. She definitely was. So then Jessica says, well, and I really thought this is going to be the scene where they, you don't have, you have a tan line where your bracelet should be, and because of this and this and this, you're the murderer. But no, it doesn't turn out like that at all. It's because Jessica didn't see a tan line on her wedding ring finger, so she must not have been Carl's wife, and she wasn't.
Well, and there was also another clue. So the night before they, finally we get to the truth of the matter, Jessica's sleeping and she hears something outside her window, and someone put up a noose, and Jessica was able to deduce from the way that the noose was tied, it was right-handed. So I guess Jessica's now she thought this whole time, okay, the killer's got to be left-handed, but now she's starting to think, well, maybe the killer is ambidextrous.
Right. Ambidextrous. Right, because this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So, so that's a clue, and I know how you feel about clues.
So I love clues. So this is the thing. It's as if the killer is warning her, like, stop looking into this, otherwise we'll kill you too. Or I'll kill you too. Whoops.
Yeah, it's a little dark.
Knowing who the murderer is, I can't see that those... Okay. I can't see that happening, them doing that. But, so once it's revealed that Sally isn't the killer and, she really doesn't have a motive, she wouldn't inherit anything because she wouldn't... she wasn't really married to Carl. Yeah, she's kind of it's out of the question. And she takes her turquoise jewelry and she just sort of leaves town. And at this point, I think I know what it is. I think I know who the murderer is. I think it's two people. Yeah, I think it's two people. One's left-handed and one's right-handed. Doesn't that make perfect sense?
Sure.
Or he's ambidextrous. Okay?
Right.
And I say he because there's only men left. And it's not going to be Mary, and it's not going to be the maid, Emma. Because...
what did Sally call her? Chiquita? Or something like
Chiquita,
that?
Yeah, Chiquita. Okay,
so Sally's racist, too. Yeah.
Yeah, Chiquita. So she's having a conversation with the doctor, Doc Wallace, and she noticed that he's ambidextrous because he's carving an apple.
No, he's left-handed. He's left-handed.
Oh, he's left-handed?
But,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, I think our killer is a tall... She said earlier, I think our killer is a tall, strong, ambidextrous man. And she's walking with Doc Wallace, and they take a stroll into the barn. And there in the barn are Sam, Tim, and who's the third guy?
Bill.
Yeah. Oh, Bill Carmody.
So they all admit to the murder. So all four of them were involved. It wasn't just one killer. It was all four. Which makes it interesting because Jessica even says that's what threw me. That it was all four of you. And how the story goes.
Why are they hanging out in the barn right when she walks in there with Doc Wallace?
I think they knew it was coming.
Okay.
I don't, or maybe they were having a discussion about what they should do next. But we find a little backstory about what happened and why they did what they did, because they seem like really nice guys. They all seem to care about Mary and are family friends to some degree. But we find out that before Mary was born, that young Carl, was attracted to Jack's wife at the time. What was her name?
Ruth, thank you. Was attracted to Ruth, but I guess she kind of pushed him away, so he raped her.
Mm-hmm. Kind of dark. That rape, yeah, kind of dark. That rape ended up into the what's the word I'm looking for? Not the birth, but the ended up being Mary. Okay, yeah. But Carl had to leave because the town hated him. They all knew what he had done, so he had to leave town. And in the process, they caught him and they strung him up to hang him. But Jack stopped them, saying, "No, you can't do this. Let him go." So they let him go, and Jack raised Mary. He knew, because you also find out that Doc was aware that Jack was sterile. So Jack decided he was going to raise Mary as his daughter, and apparently he loved her very much. Tim even said he doted her, and so whatever that final conversation Carl and Jack had must have been about Mary. Maybe you need to take care of your daughter now, or I don't know.
Or he was going to expose. He was going to tell Mary that he was her real father, so Jack signed off on the will. Mm-hmm. That, by the way, is called duress, and that's how you could challenge a will. That will would be void.
Oh, really? Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, if you are new to this, Sean is a lawyer. Now, he's not I would say you're more law or into the law of
debt collection.
Debt, right? Debt collection, yeah. So he can't answer any, if you do email us. Do we have an email?
We do, and I don't remember what it is, but it will be in the
but
bumper at the end of this.
Do not email Sean legal questions, because he will not answer them.
Yeah, this is on the
specifically,
bottom of the screen.
Especially in death probation or anything like that. So,
well, I can tell you a little bit about that, but
yeah, you got some very good insight, but I'm trying to set you up so you don't have to answer.
Okay, yeah, I don't know anything about anything legal at all. I just know that if someone signs a will under duress, then that will could be challenged in court. Which, by the way,
yes.
So the will, he signed off on it. No one's challenged it yet. So the ranch is actually in Carl's estate because he doesn't have a wife, so it didn't go to her. So that's never resolved, really, is it?
That's a good point. No, so it would have gone to Carl's relatives.
If he has any, but all they could do with Sam's help is challenge the will in probate, or I'm sorry, challenge the will and say it was signed under duress, and then it would probably all go to Mary instead. I think that's what realistically would happen after this episode.
Right. So the four guys they say, okay, Jessica, you caught us. We'll turn ourselves in, but under no circumstance we're not going to tell Mary anything. And Jessica agrees. No, she's been through enough. No one's going to tell Mary about the truth of this. So,
but she's
kind of interesting.
And she thinks for a minute that they're going to kill her right there in the barn.
I think she, because Doc was peeling an apple, like you said. And he was still peeling that apple up to the barn. I was sure she was wondering, what's he going to do with that knife? But he put it away. So
he didn't eat the apple. He didn't even take a bite out of it. He just peeled it, and they walked into the barn, and he threw it in the trash. Dude.
What a waste.
They say an apple a day. Maybe he's just on a quest to find all the apples and dispose of them.
Skin them alive.
Yeah, good luck with that, Doc. Doc Wallace. Good luck doing that behind bars now. So yeah, it turns out it was these 4 old guys that all did it together. And they're like, okay, one of them makes a decision. It's Sam. He says, yeah, he's like, well, we'll tell the sheriff. We'll probably go to trial. We may serve prison. And she's like, okay. And then the very first time I've seen, Jessica walks out into the sunset, arms in arm, with the murderer, or one of the murderers. Okay.
So, when we did the Columbo Confab, we'd always kind of have a quick discussion at the end do you think they actually served time? So, Sean, I'm going to ask you that same thing. Do you think these 4 served any time?
I think they may have served time for manslaughter, which was probably a few years, because it was an accident. It was not intent. There was no intent to murder him, but they were being kind of negligent, if you will, putting him on a horse in a noose.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But we didn't say. So they put they put Carl on in the noose, and there was a lightning strike or a thunder strike. And the horse was startled and ran off, and Carl was hung.
Yeah.
So yeah, and kind of as a misdirect, the doc hit Carl on the head because he's left-handed with a rock on the head. So it looked like that was the cause, but whatever. This is a misdirection. I personally think that they probably didn't serve any time. As a matter of fact, I don't think they probably told the marshal anything. I think they all said, "Okay, Jessica, let's push you all. We're going to take you all to the airport. Wish you goodbye." Push her off onto the plane, and then they went back to their lives.
Yeah, in the airport, they watched the plane take off, and then they all high-fived each other. We got away with it, yeah. Because that idiot sheriff, he's never going to figure it out.
Not without Jessica. No, not at all.
And I could see her. She goes, "So you're sure you're going to tell the police?" Yes. Are you packed? Okay, we'll take you out right now.
I don't know Jessica that well as a character, but I would like to think that she kind of knows that, and that it's in their hands, and she's not going to follow up.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that something she would do? I don't know.
I think so. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Almost like she didn't want to know the truth. Like she found the truth, but it's almost like the sympathetic killer.
She was like, okay, so I'm gonna just drink a lot of dandelion wine and forget that this happened.
All right.
I don't know.
So is dandelion wine sweet? Have you? I think we've had this conversation. You've never had it before,
no.
Correct?
No, but I'm going to
look
for it.
Can you buy it at the liquor store?
I don't know. I'm going to have to ask, though, because I'm really curious.
You're going to have to go to the local Specs or Total Wine or something. And
yeah,
say,
but
they say, are you looking for a red wine, a white wine? I don't know. Do you have a dandelion wine? I'm going to look that up right now.
And they'll be like, dandelion wine? I've never heard of such a thing.
What are you, a hippie?
So I have this personal quest of mine that I'm gonna keep track of statistics while we watch this show, and I'm gonna keep track of the types of the ways that victims were killed, and the gender of the victims and the murderers, and how many murderers there are. So far we have 1 hanging, 1 male victim, and 4 male murderers. Okay. I guess. That's cool. I just have this theory that a lot of murder mystery writers, they don't want the murderers to be female. And that was the case with Agatha Christie in her earlier stuff,
Okay.
Have you looked up that dandelion wine? Okay.
Yeah, so if you Google dandelion wine, it says dandelion wine has more of a tang tinge to it.
Oh.
That's interesting. Yeah, so it's not sweet. You think it'd be something, I don't know, summer sweet, kind of like a lemonade maybe? I don't know. Does dandelion wine have alcohol is the next question. As with all other yeast sugar fermented beverages, dandelion wine does indeed contain alcohol. It's about 12 to 15% alcohol by volume. Wow! That's a lot for a wine.
So that's why she wasn't really drinking any. I never seen Jessica drink on that show. They gave her that glass of wine, and I don't think she really even sipped it. But whatever.
All right. Now we have to find it. Where can we buy it?
I'm going to look it up on... Let me... This is fantastic podcasting, by the way. Nothing but a couple of middle-aged men looking for wine on the Total Wine and More app.
Okay. Total Wine and More does sell it. And it has a... I mean, they're closed now. I am buying that.
Because it's Sunday. I don't have it. Mine I looked for it. It did not come up. It's coming up with ice wine, though. But,
Do you drink it chilled? Or when I get there, I'm gonna go up to the wine expert. There's a name for that. I can't think of it. And I'm gonna ask them, how do you drink this? I'm gonna buy some. And I'll report on it next time we do this podcast.
And you know what you can call it? You can call it Adrian Carsini's Wine Corner. And
I don't think the Carsini brothers would make this kind of wine.
Yeah,
because it's not from grapes.
And he wouldn't want some Texan to bring it out with the homemade chili.
All right, so you ready to review this episode?
Yes. So Steve, as custom dictates, you must find a random number that may or may not appear in the episode. And then
it will appear. It will appear in the episode somewhere. It could be a license plate number. It could be a mention of a year, a birthday. God knows anything. I mean, I'm looking at apartment numbers, but this particular number tonight, I am pulling from the very beginning of the episode. It was absolutely perfect for review. So at the very beginning, we see a truck pass by the population sign of 50 Mile, Wyoming. The population is 427.
Oh, 427.
So, Sean, what would you rate this episode 1 out of 427?
Well, I'm going to give this 342. This was better than I expected. I was like, oh, I don't want to watch this. I want Cabot Cove. I want, like, Amos Tupper and all that. And I was like, okay, this is insulting my intelligence. It's totally Sally. Can't you all see that? The arm wrestling, that's a clue. They're showing us clues everywhere, guys. And, you know... And then I thought it was 2 people. I didn't think it would be 4 people, though. I don't know. She came to that conclusion just because she walked in and they were all together. But, big surprise at the end. Did not see that coming at all. You know, there's a famous Agatha Christie novel and movie where it has a similar conclusion. And
are you talking about Orient Express?
Yeah. Yeah, for those of you that have never read or seen the movie, whoa.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on. The story is like 100 years old. Let's be realistic here.
Yeah, there's been like 4 movies. Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, these stories, they do a really good job of packing all this in about all these characters and their various motives. And they do it all in 45 or 50 minutes or however long it was. And they do a really good job of it. At least they did in this case. It didn't feel like there was anything missing. There was no... there were no, dangling threads or anything. I would say that it's a good, strong story. And I think it was picked intentionally to end the first season because they wanted to end it on a strong note. So yeah, for the most part, you know, I liked it. It wasn't like, my God, the greatest 45 minutes of TV that I've ever seen, but otherwise, it was a really good, strong mystery. And that's all I got to say about that.
Okay. Well, I feel the same, and I think my score is going to be a little offsetting in a way in the fact that I'm trying to rate this yes, 1 on my enjoyment, which I did enjoy this episode, but 2, I kind of want to rate it against like the other episodes I've seen, which, like I said, has been like 5. So this was a really strong episode. So but I don't have that much experience with the program. So basing it off that, I did enjoy the actors that played, especially the actors who played Sam, who apparently has become a regular. The guy who played Tim, what was his name?
Donald
Moffat. Donald Moffat. I thought he was really good. It's killing me. I know I've seen him in other things recently too, but I enjoyed, Jessica Angela Lansbury. I thought she did a wonderful job. Maybe it was like ending on a high note for the season. So I'm going to give it, and this is kind of just an out there number, but out of 427, I'm going to give it a 340. So very similar to you. It was good. It was enjoyable. I would recommend watching it, but I have a feeling there's probably better episodes. I know there's worse episodes that I've seen, but I'm looking forward to reviewing those as well.
Because you went out and you found like a list of like the top 5 episodes, and you watched it, and you were like, this one's boring. And the one that you mentioned, I think I've seen it, but I'm not going to say what it is.
It was like the top 20 episodes or something like that, and one of them mentioned, and I watched it, and it was my first episode for this podcast, and it was horrible. I don't know why. I don't know why it would be in the top 20, but
and I remember not liking
maybe
it
being
either.
it would probably be it should be in the low 20s from whatever. But I'm looking forward to it because this was a good episode. I'm looking forward to what we're going to watch. A lot of my history with the program either revolves around from what I've watched, but also not a podcaster, a YouTuber. I don't know if you watched your stuff. I think you have. It's Pushing Up Roses.
Yes.
Yeah. She is pretty funny. So a lot of the episodes that she talks about, I'll go and watch. And I've had to stop myself watching her YouTube channel because I was starting to realize, now I know who the killer is, and I want to be surprised. So while I do enjoy her program, and if you're familiar with the show, please, I would look her up. I recommend looking her up, Pushing Up Roses. I had to stop watching her because it was just giving away too much.
Yeah, I don't want to watch it either. She's really funny. I mean, the stuff that she points out, like, too much dandelion wine, Jessica, or she'd say something like that. I don't think she's done this episode because this isn't like
she's like that episode. Angela got drunk, or that episode where Angela did sexy fetish thing or something, whatever.
That episode where Jessica wore jeans, which is a real thing.
There's one where she goes into a singles bar wearing like tight pants, and a bunch of makeup, and I forgot what she thought. It was hilarious. Anyways, she did one recently on Clue, which, if you haven't had a chance, I recommend watching that.
I think I will, perhaps tonight. Okay. All right. So the way we do this to decide what episode we are going to watch next, Steve is going to swing or spin the wheel of that season, and we'll watch that episode. So... Okay, Steve, could you please, the staff is pulling out the Season 2 wheel. If you could please...
have staff?
Yeah, we have staff. It's actually my cats. Could you please...
Of course.
Cats, could you please bring out the Season 2 wheel so Steve can spin it? And Steve, let me know once you begin spinning it.
Spitting or spinning?
Spinning! Spinning! Did you just say spinning or spinning? Spinning.
You said spinning. You said spinning. I thought well, never mind.
I did say spinning. You spin
I am taking my virtual... Oh, God.
Could we just pretend that we're actually doing this in person? I don't know why... Oh, God, Steve. You fold in the cheese.
All right, I'm taking my arm out of my pocket, and I'm spinning it now.
You put your whole arm in your pocket? Okay, let's see. This wheel sounds vaguely familiar as if you've done it before. All right, we are going to watch...
using props, yeah.
We are going to watch from Season 2 something called Sing a Song of Murder. I don't know, but I'll bet you it has something to do with professional musicians. Maybe.
So season 2... Oh, that'd be awesome.
This is
Season 2, episode what?
Episode 5. Sing a Song of Murder. Sing a song of murder. Okay.
If there's no Johnny Cash in this, I'm going to be sorely disappointed. I'm going to rate it half off if there's no Johnny Cash.
Okay. All right. It's, you know what? Already, I think I'm going to take half off because I'm pretty sure Johnny Cash never appeared in Murder, She Wrote. So, yeah.
What a shame.
All right.
All right, Sean. Until next time.
Until next time, Steve. Say goodnight, Steve.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Cabot Cove Confab. If you've enjoyed it, please leave us a favorable review on Apple Podcasts. Also, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at Cabot Cove Confab or email us at cabotcoveconfab@gmail.com.